everybody. Ashley Robinson here. So we're about to make a lot of things make sense today with a very, very special guest. I'm super excited to have her, Representative Ruwa Romman, who is here with us, who is part of our very diverse class of state legislators that we have on the House side. Diverse class that we have just in general within the General Assembly, but specifically, Representative Romman is going to really kind of chat with us about what does really diversity really mean. I know it's a sexy term, and this is just in our series of folks that we want to chat with who are part of that that introductory class. So, Representative, I'm going to turn it over to you to share, how the legislature has been treating you so far. Today is the 11th day of legislative session, but tell us about your district, who you are, and then we'll go from there.
So thank you so much for having me. My name is Ruwa Romman, as you mentioned, and I am from State House District 97 here in Georgia, which is West Gwinnett. It's quite a diverse district. It includes Berkeley Lake, Duluth, Norcross, and Peachtree Corners. So for those of you familiar with the area, that's like up and down Peachtree Industrial Boulevard, essentially. And, I am really excited to be serving this district. I am also a Muslim woman. I'm a hijab wearing woman. I'm a Palestinian woman. And so there's a lot there, and a lot of layers sort of to who I am. And yeah, day 11 just ended. Actually, just for some people, they're still going with a lot of receptions, but it's been a lot. And at the same time, it's a slower ramp up than usual because a lot of us just got our committee assignments. Committees are finally meeting for the first time. We just had budget week a couple of weeks ago. So we're all really, I think this is sort of the big ramp up week that we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, we're really starting to get into the thick of the issues now. It's always a thing getting past budget week and starting to get into the real meat of why we're here. Um, so, can you tell us a little bit about your background and like what pushed you to run? And how do you think and if I need to ask you this question again because I know I'm saying a lot of things. Um, how has your experience you think kind of like catapulted you into this role? Because it's a very special and I was telling one of our state representatives that I spoke with earlier, like thank you for offering yourself to service because it's a special type of person that will run. It's a special type of um, care and ability to just believe that that not only that you are the person that could be that representative, but that you are the right person for the job. So tell us why you were the right person for this particular position.
So running for office was sort of an accident. While I appreciate and understand that for a lot of people that seems weird since I've always been politically involved in some way, a lot of my involvement has either been through nonprofits or advocacy organizations. And as you all know, being involved in politics can take a lot of roles. You can work in the digital field, you can work in the advertisement field, you can work in, just helping campaigns in the background. And so that's where I have mostly thrived. That is where my role has always been. I got my master's in public policy, so I can do more of that non-headline making, but very important government work that I really believed in. And as part of that involvement, my friend at the Georgia Muslim Voter Project invited me to a training for candidates because she knew that based on my expertise, I would be able to see if there were any gaps missing in that inaugural training, if they needed to add anything. And it was, a Zoom call on a Saturday morning. And I thought, sure, why not? I think at the time I was probably like doing my laundry and listening in and just like taking notes and doing the typical work from home type of meeting. And a reporter was there who was covering the very important story about more minority women, women in general, being more involved in politics. And she wrote a beautiful piece about the Muslim women in politics and the importance of that. But she started that article with Ruwa Romman is contemplating a run for office or like something like that. The article had come out on my husband and I's anniversary on December 23rd,
Okay,
and
that's no coincidence there.
Muslims do not celebrate Christmas, so a lot of us had a lot of time on our hands.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, I'm getting these like phone calls and text messages asking me when I'm going to run, what I'm running for, what they can do to get me to run. And unfortunately, with things like Citizens United, running for office requires fundraising experience that I did not have and I never cultivated. And I let them know that. Um, and so the conversation kind of went like something along the lines of, well, you know how to run campaigns and we can help you fundraise. So will you run for office now? And somebody went as far as looking at my address to see what district we lived in because the maps just got redrawn and we found out we're in a new open seat. And next thing I knew, 15 days later, we launched a campaign.
15 days later.
It was
Wow. But it's no mistake, and I'll say, as a former staff person within the legislature, um, formerly working under, then, my House Minority Leader Stacey Abrams, that level of staff experience, is really it it's a different type of, intensity, but also a different type of experience, um, and you're doing a lot of work. You're doing a lot of work. So it's essentially training you for what you're doing now. So it makes, I think, that transition a little bit easier for you. Um, the Center for American Women in Politics, that's run by Rutgers, mentioned that 81 women are serving out of the 236 General Assembly members that we have within the Peach State, which is the most ever that we've seen. But particularly for you, I want to ask, when we're thinking about women in politics and having to balance and thinking about who typically runs and who are some of the folks that are maybe best suited but don't necessarily have the ability to run. How are you balancing that? You mentioned your husband, and of course I'm certain you still working, or you're keeping yourself very active and busy. So how are you balancing being a new legislator, also having to manage your day-to-day?
Yeah, so actually at the beginning of the year, I ended up transitioning jobs. So thankfully, I'm able to just focus on the legislative session this year. And it's great because there's so much to learn as a freshman. And
Yeah.
I'm watching my colleagues who don't have, unfortunately, that privilege of being able to say, hey, I'm switching careers this year. And, we're moving into something different, which means I get like 2, 3 months where I'm just focused on this. And for a lot of them, they're literally just catching work meetings in the middle of the day, and at night working. In my case, I'm also doing the same thing as it relates to just prepping for what's next. And so, you're balancing your home life, you're balancing your professional life, you're balancing any sort of family needs that might arise. For those legislators that have kids, they've had to coordinate drop offs and things change last minute and meetings get moved, and it is just a lot. And going back to our conversation earlier, I
Mhm.
think a lot of times people don't realize that, frankly, staff are so incredibly important in the space of
Yes.
politics because while quote unquote we might be the front facing part of that office, there's a whole team of folks who, are running my schedule, helping me draft content, helping me read bills, tracking committee hearings, you name it. And so it's not like that candidates don't do anything, right? Like I'm in these meetings, I'm proposing ideas, I'm proposing legislation. It's just there are so many more of us than just the candidates that people see. And so we really, you build a lot of trust and you kind of have to be good at delegating or else you're just really gonna drown.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So maybe pivoting, you talked about your background in policy, and being able to kind of more easily kind of transition into the policy making portion of your work within the legislature. What are some of your big issues or things? I mean, are you going to use, not to say that you won't use this time to legislate, of course, but um, are there any big issues that you yourself are going to focus on, and things that we should be on the lookout for from you?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I recognize that being the first Muslim woman in the Georgia State House and first Palestinian elected anywhere in the state comes with a big responsibility to educate my fellow lawmakers about the communities that I'm representing. That
Yeah.
includes my district. It also includes a lot of Muslims. I'm not saying I speak for all of them, but
Right.
I was incredibly blessed to have the support of my Muslim community. They were some of my biggest financial backers. They volunteered for me. They really, I mean, showed up. And obviously the Palestinian community for the first time felt like they had a voice here in Georgia, and for a long time they didn't. And I think there was a conversation about how the state legislature now looks like a changing Georgia. And I've been correcting that by saying, no, it's just for the first time these communities have learned how to build that capacity and that infrastructure to have the representation they need at the table.
Mm,
So that's a very important focus. It's not my only focus, but it's always in the back of my mind of when I talk to somebody, what context can I bring that they didn't have previously? Um, my focus is my platform at the end of the day. I unfortunately did not get to be on the education committee, but I am actively attending or watching those committee meetings, trying to see what's coming out of them because a lot of people have heard me say this, but it's true. My teachers really played a huge part in who I am. They were there during a very pivotal time in my life. I always say they like saved my life. And, I really want every student in Georgia to have the incredible education experience that I did. Similarly, making sure that folks have access to healthcare and what does that look like and how can we expand access to healthcare? Um, we talk a lot about inflation and people like to use that for political points, but the reality of the situation is that people can't afford to put food on the table and it's getting harder and harder and they have to pick up two, three, four jobs. And then we turn around and we say, oh, look, they're absentee parents. And you can't have a serious conversation about student behavior if you're not talking about how you're supporting the whole of the student and the family. So how can we bring that voice to the table? And also, I'm learning a lot that's really made me passionate about those things. For example, EMS is not an essential service in Georgia. Could we make that one? What does that mean for the state? Could it be a benefit? And so, you kind of go into it with a vision and a moral compass and a foundation that's really important. And then you look around and you go, what is the most immediate need? And you sort of triage that while you work towards those long term goals that I just mentioned.
gotcha. So we're gonna wrap up here in a bit, but I do have a fun question for you. What is your guilty pleasure music?
I laugh because, as basic as it sounds, I am a total Swiftie. I already made a Taylor Swift reference in my first Well speech. I was trying to like practice one and was recognizing my husband and I's anniversary. And anytime I just need a second to turn off my brain, it's just something about that constant in my life of growing up with her music and just it being there has always sort of been a source of joy for me. And I know a lot of people judge me for it, but
This is really a
it
judgment-free
is
zone.
it is my it is it's something that I really enjoy. So
I love knowing this about you. Well, Representative, thank you so much for your time. But more than anything, thank you for your service. Thank you for offering yourself to service, even if it was an accident, which I don't believe it was. Um, we are so lucky to have you in the legislature, and we really wish you, not only for myself, but the people of Georgia, and of course the team here at Progress Georgia, we wish you the best in this first legislative session. And we're looking forward to a lot of really big things from you. So thank you so much for your time today, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.